I am Jean Kingsley, Berkeley Heights Town Council President. For the last several years, the Council has been working on a project to address the aging infrastructure of our town. It has been a complicated project as it involves not only multiple locations, but the various needs of our departments: the police, Department of Public Works, engineering, building, administration, and recreation. We have had numerous public meetings to not only keep the public informed, but solicit your input as we have progressed through the planning process. Today, we are going to bring together our experts, Anthony Iovino, our architect, and Mike Mistretta, the township planner, so they can talk to you about the status of the plans in totality to allow you the opportunity to see not only how complicated the project is, but how all of the various parts fit together.
Hi, my name is Mike Mistretta. I'm the township planner. I'm a principal with the firm of Harbor Consultants in Cranford, New Jersey, and I've been representing Berkeley Heights now for about 13 years now. I've been asked today to discuss the ongoing redevelopment plans and the redevelopment project in the township. And what I want to do is start with the Park Avenue project, and then I'm going to transition it over to the Hamilton Avenue and the library project. Starting with the Park Avenue redevelopment project, we're familiar with our site. This is where our existing municipal complex is located on Park Avenue. We have our railroad tracks in the behind the site, and it fronts also on Plainfield Avenue. Everybody's familiar with the existing municipal complex, and then behind that we have our salt dome, recreation facility, DPW yard, and then there's wooded area behind that, surrounded by a residential development. As part of this presentation, you will see a number of renderings that have been prepared by our architect, Anthony Iovino, and he gets into more of the details of the look of the municipal complex, the design of the roof, the colors, the location, the site plan, etc. My responsibility as part of preparing that redevelopment plan is to basically take all of Anthony's works and his drawings and renderings and put it into text form as part of a redevelopment plan. And we're at that stage where it's very important, and we really want to encourage public feedback and get comments from the public on what you have seen to date and what you're going to see in this presentation. So the township has scheduled a meeting on Saturday, January 30th. It's an open house workshop meeting, and what that means is it's a very informal, casual meeting that's being held right here in Town Hall, where everybody's available to come here, take a look at all of the drawings that have been presented, and ask the professionals any questions that they have. It doesn't matter what type of question, we're here. The professionals will be here the entire day to answer your questions and just obtain as much of your feedback as possible. We think it's very important that we have this meeting, we get your feedback, because our next step in the process is to adopt and prepare these redevelopment plans. A redevelopment plan for the Park Avenue complex will consist of a text that basically describes the project and put it into words and text and renderings and charts and so forth. It's basically going to put into words Anthony's drawings so that when it goes out to bid, they understand exactly what the town expects of the contractor, and the public can anticipate exactly what would be constructed. A redevelopment plan, for the most part, is, I call, like a mini master plan. It's also a zone ordinance, design standards, and has environmental regulations, all put together under one report. And it's very important that we get that right, and that's why we look forward to your feedback on the 30th. After the redevelopment plan for Park Avenue is adopted by council, it then gets referred to the planning board for review and comment. Then the planning board will come back to council with the recommendations, and we will hold another formal public hearing so the public gets another opportunity to speak on the document. Again, the Saturday is set up as a very informal opportunity, but you'll also have a second opportunity at a formally noticed public hearing in front of council where you get another opportunity to speak on the redevelopment plan before it's adopted by council. Once the redevelopment plan is adopted by council, that redevelopment plan, coupled with the architectural, engineering, and civil drawings, will be bundled together, and that will be put out for an RFP, RFQ. What that process is the bid process, and that bid process will have the contractors respond to that request for proposals and request for qualifications and submit a sealed bid to the Township Council to construct all of the site improvements that you see on the combined drawings for Park Avenue. Our timeline, as part of this presentation, we've prepared a number of different timelines, one for each of the 3 projects. The timeline that we have right now for Park Avenue anticipates having the Saturday workshop meeting in January, excuse me. Then we prepared a redevelopment plan, and we want to get through the bid process by the end of this year, with the hope that we would be starting construction January of 2017. Now, the second phase of this project is known as the Hamilton Avenue campus. That entails block 1301 of lot 19, intersection of Hamilton Avenue and Roosevelt Avenue. I'm sure most of you know it as the upper campus of the Church of the Little Flower. Presently, right now, we're aware that it's developed with the school that supports the Church of the Little Flower and their rectory building on the property, as well as a large parking lot located in the center of the property, surrounded by woods and some streams and wetland areas on the western portion of the site. In order to move forward with the development of this project, we've done a number of different analyses of different uses, which I presented at earlier town hall meetings. We did various type of uses. We did single family, we did multifamily, we looked at the existing conditions. We previously looked at moving the municipal complex over to this site and so forth. And after a number of public hearings, it was determined by everyone, community, the council, that this one would be best if it was developed for a residential use. So by taking that concept of a residential use, our next step was to do an environmental analysis of the property. And what you see on this next board over here is you see a boundary and topographic survey, the existing conditions on the property, and these lines that you see in the site are delineated wetland boundaries up in the northern portion of the site, as well as on the western portion of the site. Wetlands boundary line, this black line is labeled. There's also streams identified, which are identified in blue on the site. And you'll see a number of white lines. Now what these white lines are, riparian corridor buffers, that's a stream corridor buffer. Then there's a 100-year floodplain line. Then there's a 50-foot wetland transition area line and a 100-year flood hazard line. All of this engineering work had to be done and documented before we can make any determination on the realistic yields of the property. We had previously done concepts, but we wanted to refine those so we really had an understanding of what could be developed on this site once we went to the residential use, the multifamily use. So after our environmental and engineering analysis was concluded, we were then able to produce what is commonly known as a yield map. This yield map is basically going to be the basis for the redevelopment plan that we developed for Hamilton Avenue. This is not necessarily what the community would look like, or the layout, or the configuration. This is just, if somebody were to ask, if you went multifamily, if you went townhouse with an inclusionary affordable housing component, what type of yield could you potentially get on this property? So what we did was we created our own layout with some passive recreation areas intermixed into the project. We have our stormwater management basin. We have a passive walking trail that encircles the development. And we've respected and preserving the environmental sensitive areas of the site to the west, as well as the small stream corridor to the north of the property. So with all of those environmental constraints mapped, and we came up with a yield map that came up with 80 townhouse units. That's what we believe would be the maximum yield. In addition to the 80 townhouse units, there would be what's called an inclusionary set-aside component, which means an apartment component that would be designed to help satisfy our affordable housing needs, and those units would generally be placed in this area on this concept. So this is the base map that would be used for the preparation of the redevelopment plan. Just like Anthony did on the other drawings where he prepared the renderings and so forth, and I'm taking those renderings and now creating a redevelopment plan based on the architect's vision for our municipal complex, I will use this map as the basis for preparing a redevelopment plan and identify what we believe the yield would be on this site. It doesn't necessarily have to be 80 units, but we're saying that would be the maximum density of the site. Now that we have this yield map completed, just like last time, we're going to prepare the redevelopment plan. And that redevelopment plan, again, is like a mini master plan. It's going to have its own zoning, its own design standards. We have the environmental work done. We have the boundary and topographic work done. You bundle that all together, now the council can go ahead and hold a hearing and adopt the redevelopment plan. First, we'll send it to the planning board for review and comment, comes back to council. We hold a formal public hearing. These boards will be up there. Anybody from the public can come and ask any questions that they want. They can examine the documents ahead of time. And then council would adopt the redevelopment plan for Hamilton Avenue. At that stage, then we're ready to go out for what's called an RFP, RFQ for Hamilton Avenue. An RFP is request for proposal. RFQ is request for qualifications. What we would do is we're trying to create an atmosphere where this is bid and advertised, and we send it out to the biggest and the best home builders out there. And basically you're trying to create a design competition, saying this is one idea, but put your most talented design teams together, follow the rules and the regulations in our redevelopment plan, and submit a sealed bid to our town council as to what you would pay for and what would you develop on this site, provided that it meets the requirements of our redevelopment plan. So their design teams can come up with many different configurations, as I'm sure we're going to see, with their own product lines and their own layouts and so forth. But the idea here is to get it out there on the street, let the developers who do this for a living respond to the township with sealed bids, and then we're able to open those up and evaluate them one by one. And the third property I would like to speak about is commonly known as the Township Library property, Block 1301, Lot 26. As we all know right now, our library sits right on the property up against Plainfield Avenue. Just to the south of it is the Church of the Little Flower Church, which is located on Lot 21. Lot 21, to be clear, is not part of the redevelopment study or the redevelopment plan. Lot 21 is a very large property that encircles two sides of the Township Library property, and that's in the smaller line that you see here. The property I'm going to be talking about is the Township Library property, which is the darker line right here. Under this proposal, under this redevelopment proposal, the Church of the Little Flower would take title to the Township Library property and combine it with Lot 21, their existing property that they own. In this scenario, our township responsibilities are very limited. What we're going to do is, we've already seen a preliminary discussion of the proposed use by the church on the library property by Monsignor Harms, very informally. They are in the process of developing their plans, just like Anthony Iovino, the architects, are developing the plans for Park Avenue. Their professionals, the church professionals, are developing their own plans, architectural and engineering, for the future use of the library. My responsibility would be to prepare a redevelopment plan that takes those drawings, meets with their professionals, and again, we put it into text form, and that's part of what's called the redevelopment plan. It's adopted the same way as the two previous redevelopment plans, one on Park Ave and one on Hamilton Avenue. This would be the third redevelopment plan that we adopt. Now, once council adopts this third redevelopment plan, that essentially ends our responsibility as a community for the library property. Now the transfer of title takes place. Church of the Little Flower owns the property, and you have this redevelopment plan in place that controls the development of the library property. But from that point forward, you're on a timeline that's controlled wholly by the Church of the Little Flower. And at their cost, they will build that under their schedule. So I can't get into any of those time frames because that's up to the church. What you will see as part of this presentation are 3 slides, and what I've tried to do is reduce everything that I've spoke about today into 3 individual flow charts. One for Park Avenue and the redevelopment of Park Avenue, one for the redevelopment of Hamilton Avenue, and one for the redevelopment of the library. 3 totally separate projects, 3 very separate redevelopment plans proceeding along 3 separate timelines, and I would refer you to those 3 flow charts because I think they're going to be very clear and they may answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anthony Iovino. I'm a principal in the firm of Arcari and Iovino Architects, and I'm here to introduce you to the conceptual plans and drawings for the new municipal complex in DPW along Park Avenue. So what I have are 5 different boards that I'll be introducing you to, walking you through, and I'll begin with the overall site plan. Now, Park Avenue is where our current municipal building stands and DPW. The image that I have here to orient yourself is Plainfield Avenue. The train tracks run along here at the top of our drawing, and Park Avenue runs here along the bottom of the drawing. Beginning on the left-hand side, what you see here in green are basically natural areas that have a wetland delineation. That is still being determined, and we have a tentative line here right now. The gray boxes here are the existing DPW facilities. The cream-colored facilities are new spaces for the DPW, new garage bays, open spaces, as well as a relocated salt dome. Working back toward Plainfield Avenue, actually if I start down on Plainfield Avenue, we have commuter parking, and then we have across from Bolton Boulevard is the new ingress and egress for the property. Then we'll have the new municipal complex, which is shown here in yellow. And to Berkeley Avenue, we have the ingress and egress for the DPW and specifically the police access. What I'd like to show you next is a close-up of this area. Okay, so the image we have here is a zoomed-in graphic of the site plan. The existing, or the proposed building is the yellow stepped building that you see there. The gray areas here are other properties along Park Avenue and Berkeley Avenue. And as I mentioned earlier, the main ingress and egress for our parking areas in the whole property is across from Bolton Boulevard, so that we have a proper ingress and egress. In the current municipal facility, there's a concern about the sight lines along Park Avenue, and that Park Avenue crests further toward Berkeley Avenue, and the sight line is hard to see if a car is coming quickly. So right now, people pull in and out of this property at multiple points. The proposed site will have a dedicated ingress and egress that will be more controllable, more noticeable, and safer. When we met with the public some months ago in this courtroom, a lot of the concerns too were about the park across the street and the fact that in the evening and on the weekends, a lot of the residents will park in the municipal parking lot and just meander across the street at any point. And this will help make this a safer arrangement for that as well. So within the site, starting on Plainfield Avenue, we will have a marker, sculpture, signage to be determined. And again, this is all conceptual at this point, that will identify the complex out at Plainfield and Park Avenue by the train tracks, by the crossing. We will have 123 commuter parking spaces, which is a big expansion of what is there now. And essentially, when you pull into our driveway, everything to the right will be commuter, everything to the left will be municipal. We have 84 municipal parking spaces that will be in front of the new municipal building and will serve as a buffer to the residences along Park Avenue. We'll be over 80 feet away from the residences on Park Avenue. And then to the very left end of this plan, we will have the police entrance, 52 parking spaces for the police, and as well as private garage and sally port for prisoner handling in the back of the building so that it's away from the residences. The police will be able to come in and out of the property along Berkeley Avenue so that it's a secondary entrance and they're not caught behind other people trying to leave. So it's safer for the police to respond, quicker for them. The green areas that you see along this drawing are intended to be just that, green spaces. At the very main entrance of the building, which you'll see in a moment in the renderings, we are planning a plaza, a gathering space for civic events, for celebrations, for people just to catch some sun and relax. So that really helps to mark the entrance of this building. The intent here is that we position the building off of where the current municipal building is now. Right where my hand is roughly where the current municipal building is. So our new facility can be constructed before the current facility is removed so that we don't have this downtime. Being that the building is set back from Plainfield Avenue, we will have these markers as you're coming by on this busy street to know that the complex is here. And as you come down Park Avenue, we'll have markers across from Bolton that bring you into the property. And then once you're in the property, you'll have clear division between commuter parking and municipal facilities. And as you'll see in a moment in the renderings, that it really brings you to a pedestrian scale as you enter the plaza and enter the front of the building. Now I'll show you the schematic plans for the proposed building. So what you see here in front of me are 3 levels of the building. The building has 2 levels above grade and 1 level below grade. So the lowest image I have here is the level below grade. This image is at grade, and this is on the 2nd floor above grade. The colors represent the different departments within the facility. So starting at the upper level, this green shade is the library. And as you'll see that there's some green at this level. So for instance, at the library, what we have planned at the moment is that at the main entrance, we have the library's large meeting room. And the idea here is that they can use this large meeting space at different hours than regular library hours. So they can shut the library down upstairs completely and have a program that runs late. And this will help save money in terms of staff that would have to occupy the building, and also gives flexibility to the residents. As well, on the top floor, we have council chambers, which is the light purple shade. The darker purple shade is administration. In this case, it's admin and clerk spaces. On the main floor, the purple shades are also administration, and that would be for the building department, engineering, assessors, and other tax spaces as well. So the more heavily trafficked spaces at the moment are planned at the ground floor. So the idea right now is that you can come as a resident to this building and it's one-stop shopping, right? So if you want to go to the library at the same time, you need to pay taxes, or you need to come to an event at the council chambers or talk to anybody in administration, you can do it without leaving the building. So you can park once and take care of all of those needs. Also on the ground floor in this cream color is the police department. So the police department has very specific requirements in terms of the layout of the space. It has to do with how they deal with both the public and the prisoner handling. And they're it's very detailed and restricted by the state in terms of how those spaces need to be isolated. In this case here, we have the public coming in a separate entrance because we wouldn't want private matters to be handled in the main lobby. So there's a separate entrance for the police. The prisoners are brought in from the back at the garage that I spoke about earlier. And within the cream color, those public and those prisoners are handled separately. So they're isolated from each other. At the lowest level, what we have predominantly is the community center. We have some great spaces that are there in the community. In the lower level, we have 2 multi-purpose spaces that are joined to be one larger 3,400 square foot space. So they're subdividable. Also in that same color code, we have 2 classrooms. So these could be high-tech classrooms for computers. They could be for different resident groups. And they offer a lot of flexibility to the community center. We have a lobby, we have staff and a director that administer the spaces down there. The idea here is that we would have one main entrance for all of those public spaces, vertical transportation with a stair and elevator that would bring you up or down at that point, and then a corridor that links through to the wings, to the stairs. At the lower level, we have storage and other support spaces that takes the burden off of the public spaces upstairs. We also have a bit of future growth that are these gray areas that are either for mechanical spaces as we develop the project, or other program spaces as the town develops the need for this. So again, this is very conceptual, and one of our next steps when we move forward with this is to sit down with the library, with police, with administration, with the community center representatives, and to make sure that the layout of these spaces works for them and for the residents. The boards I have here represent a variety of images that give a flavor for what the building might look like. Remember that this is still very conceptual. So what we've done is to extrude, if you will, what we saw on the site plan into a three-dimensional image with the appropriate heights relative to what's there on site and for what the building could be. And in terms of potential materials that could be used, red brick, limestone, other more civic materials that represent a municipal building. This is the municipal complex. The DPW hasn't been brought up to this level yet, so we're focusing on the municipal complex at the moment. So what I'd like to do is introduce you to these 6 images that take us around the site. So starting with the lower left, if you will, if you could imagine a cut through the site showing our new building, which is 3-stepped facades that go back. We're standing, if you will, at the corner at Park Avenue and Plainfield looking down toward the property. And you see the residences along Park Avenue, and you can see the height relative of those houses to our building, which is not much different, but most importantly, we're a significant distance away from them. So again, as I said earlier, we're over 80 feet away from the property line, and then the house is even further away from there. And we worked closely with the residences in previous meetings to talk about how to position this building on the site. So I think we've done a good job to not interfere with light, air, ventilation on those properties. The second image is also as though you're standing near that point at Plainfield Avenue, looking along the train tracks here on the right side. And so you see the end of the building. What's really neat about this building with those 3 segments is that the scale of it stays small. The only time you really get to see a full sense of it is if you look at it at these other bird's eye views or different angles, like from the police back. But in this particular view, you see the end of the building that is toward the administrative side of the structure. What you have here in this top image is where you would drive in across from Bolton. So this is what you would see from the building, and you begin to see these steps as it goes back, right? And these trees that we have, some trees that we're showing in the rendering for expected landscaping, but we do have a lot of trees that are at the property lines along the residences that help buffer this building from the rest of the neighbors. So we'll have signage as you enter the main driveway, and as you pull in, you'll have other signage that brings you toward the building for municipal purposes. And you can see we even have the street lamps that are standard for the downtown area along our property, so it ties in well there. This board here has an aerial view, a bird's eye view, if you will, of the front facade. Now this is the main entrance. That's the plaza I referred to in the plans before. The police entrance is here, and this is predominantly administration. So those views on that board are taken from this angle here. And you would enter the property, you would park predominantly here in front of our new building, and a short walk right into the building, be it for community center, library, administration. The police will have a separate parking lot on that side, and there are some dedicated parking spaces for police visitors. Most of the police traffic is only for records and things like that, so that's not a high use. This view here is a more up-close and personal view across the plaza to the main town hall entrance. As well, you do see the police entrance here. So this would be as though you were standing in the parking lot here, just leaving your car, and you can see it's a very short distance to the main entrance, but the main entrance and this facade is very distinct from the other facades. So this limestone material that we're proposing set against the brick traditional profiles really stands out. The last image that we have here is as though you pass the building looking back on the police side. So again, this would be the end of the building that has police. This is the police parking lot. The main entrance is where the flag poles are. And then back where you first drove into the site is in the far distance on the right-hand side. So no matter where you are on this property, aside from the parking areas that we really were trying to fit into the greenery, we think that you have a good perspective of the building. It's very clear where the entrance is. It's very clear in terms of the plaza. And the scale of the building, we think, fits in so well with the residential structures in the area, as opposed to one larger volume that might overtake those structures. So we think it sets up well on the site. It has a great image, we think, traditional image, yet different for the town. And we think it would be a very positive project. Thank you.
I would like to thank Anthony and Mike for their presentations today and all of their time and effort in this very complicated project. I encourage all of you to come to the council meetings that are held at 7 p.m. bi-monthly on Tuesday nights, and please stay informed on this project. Thank you very much.